The porcelain hit the floor before her hand realized it had let go. And for a second, no one moved. Not the guy with the laptop 2 tables over. Not the barista reaching for the oat milk. Not her. Especially not her. She just stared at me, like she was seeing something that shouldn't exist anymore. Like someone had told her I died years ago, and now I'd crawled out of the dirt wearing a hoodie and a haircut I gave myself in a motel bathroom. It was the look people give ghosts when they're not sure if they should run or start crying. I didn't blink. Neither did she. But my knees were shaking like I'd just stepped off a roller coaster I never agreed to ride. 9 years. 9 whole years without hearing her voice, without seeing her eyes, without waking up with that deep ache in my chest that I eventually stopped trying to medicate with whiskey and stupid decisions. And then boom, there she was, Evelina, standing in a sunlit cafe with froth on her lip and regret flooding her expression like a storm surge. I didn't come here for her. I swear. I was on my way to a job interview I didn't want, in a city I hate, wearing the only clean shirt that still fit. I needed caffeine. That was it. Just caffeine. Not this. Not her. And yet, the moment her eyes met mine, I knew something. I couldn't explain it, but it was there. In the way her fingers curled inwards like she was trying to hide her wedding ring. In the way her mouth opened like it wanted to say my name, but remembered it too late. In the way her friend glanced at me and then at her, and immediately went quiet. There was a secret here, and not just the kind that ruins relationships. The kind that ruins people. You ever see someone look at you and flinch, not because you hurt them, but because they know they hurt you and still hoped you'd never show up to remind them? That was the look. She stood there, frozen, while the cup rolled once, twice, and came to a stop in the middle of the cafe. A little trail of coffee snaked toward her boots. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Because the truth is, when someone shatters you and then pretends you never existed, if you ever get the chance to watch their mask crack, you don't run. You stay, even if your hands are sweating. Even if your stomach knots so tight it feels like you're being strangled from the inside out. You stay, and you wait for the next move. I waited, and that's when she said it, barely louder than a breath. I thought you were gone. No apology. No hi. No how have you been? Just those 5 words. And suddenly, 9 years didn't feel like nearly enough time to forget what she did. Her voice hit me like a whisper through a locked door, muffled, uncertain, and full of something I couldn't place right away. Was it fear? Guilt? Or that quiet panic people get when they realize the past hasn't been buried deep enough? I didn't answer. Not immediately. Because truthfully, I didn't know what the hell to say. My mouth dried up. My mind started flipping through 9 years of mental files like some frantic librarian looking for a misfiled chapter. What do you say to the woman who detonated your life, and then ghosted like you were a wrong turn she was too embarrassed to mention? Instead, I just looked at her. Really looked. Evelina hadn't aged the way I expected. She looked good, too good, honestly. But there was something brittle in the way she held herself. Like a glass sculpture trying not to crack under the weight of its own design. The way her shoulders locked, her lips pressed tightly together, her fingers twitching near her hip. It was all wrong. Too poised, too rehearsed. Like she'd been expecting a moment like this for years, but not here. Not like this. Not with me standing in front of her with under-eye bags, a thrift store coat, and a storm brewing in my chest. The guy at the next table coughed. Someone stepped over the spilled coffee. The moment was stretching too long, becoming too visible. Evelina took a step forward and gently touched my arm. It wasn't affection. It was containment, like she was afraid I'd say something loud. Can we talk outside? I didn't nod. I didn't move. I just followed her. Like a ghost. We stepped out into the wind. The street was quiet, just the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rattle of a delivery bike zooming by. She turned to face me, but her eyes didn't settle. They darted to windows, door frames, shadows. Still rehearsing something. Still managing me like I was a scene she hadn't blocked out properly. I didn't know you were back in Ashfield, she said. I'm not, I replied. Just passing through. That landed harder than I expected. She winced slightly, then nodded. Right. Of course. There was this long, awful silence. The kind where you can hear the air thinking. Do you live here now? She asked, which was rich coming from her. Like she hadn't vanished without warning and left behind a rent bill, a wilted cactus, and a 6-word note that said, "It's not you. Please forgive me." As if I could. I don't live anywhere, really. I said. But I sleep fine most nights. That's gotta count for something. She gave a hollow laugh. A soft, nervous exhale through her nose. She looked down, brushing something off her coat that wasn't even there. Then, slowly, she looked back up and asked the question I think she'd been dreading the moment she saw me. Do you hate me? And for the first time in nearly a decade, I told her the truth. No. I wish I did. But no. She closed her eyes like that hurt worse than anything else I could have said. Maybe it did. Because people like her, people who run, they know how to dodge anger. They expect it. They're prepared for yelling and tears and accusations. What they don't know how to handle is someone standing in front of them, utterly broken and still not willing to destroy them. That's when she said it. There's something I never told you. And boom. Just like that, the ground beneath me shifted again. I waited, heartbeat in my throat. But she didn't speak. She just stared at the sidewalk like it had answers written on it. And when I finally managed to whisper, "What is it?" her lips parted, but nothing came out. Because right then, someone called her name from across the street. A little voice. A child's voice. And Evelina? She froze. The moment that little voice rang out. High, clear, and unmistakably real. Everything around us seemed to stop breathing. I couldn't see the source at first. The sound came from somewhere just out of frame, behind a row of parked cars across the street. But Evelina's body told me everything I needed to know. Her breath caught mid-inhale. Her shoulders locked. Her face twisted, not in fear exactly, but something far worse. Recognition. Panic. Exposure. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. I stepped forward, just one slow, hesitant step, like I was moving through ice water. I didn't even realize my fists had clenched until my fingernails started digging into my palms. Her eyes darted toward the street, then quickly back to mine, and I could see it all happening behind them. Calculation, dread, desperation. I need you to leave, she said softly, her voice trembling at the edges. But I didn't. I couldn't. I was already walking toward the sound. Another call. This time louder. Closer. Mom. I forgot my. The words choked off as a small boy rounded the parked car. He was maybe 7, 8 at most. Dark hair. Slight build. Backpack slung too low over one shoulder. And he was holding a red scarf, the same one Evelina had always worn in the winter. The same one I bought her for Christmas the year before she vanished. The world tilted. I felt it physically, like gravity had decided to take a break. Evelina rushed forward, intercepting him halfway. Her movements were frantic but soft, like she was trying to muffle reality before it reached either of us. She knelt, whispered something to him, and ran her hand through his hair. He looked over her shoulder, straight at me. We locked eyes, and something in me snapped. Because I knew. I knew. I didn't need a DNA test or a long confession. I saw it in the curve of his cheek, the shape of his mouth, the exact same dimple in his left cheek that only appeared when he smiled, just like mine. And Evelina? She knew I saw it too. She didn't try to lie, didn't say a word, just stood up slowly, shielding the boy from me with her body like I was some kind of danger. What the hell, Evelina? I finally said, my voice raw, broken. What is this? She shook her head, not in denial, but in defeat. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear what she said. Blood was pounding in my ears, louder than anything else. The boy looked confused. I looked destroyed. You left, I said. You left, and didn't even say goodbye. I waited for weeks. I thought you were in trouble. I called hospitals. Your sister hung up on me. Your friends blocked me. You just vanished. And now this. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She just looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous at the same time. Something she thought she buried deep and forgot, only to realize it never died. He doesn't know, she whispered. Please don't do this here. My mouth went dry. My heart was thudding so violently I thought it might burst. I took a step back, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't trust myself to stay. And then I said the one thing I hadn't planned to say. The one thing that wasn't about guilt or betrayal or years of silence. What's his name? She blinked. Then, very quietly, she said, Nico. Nico. My knees almost gave out. I turned away because I couldn't stand there anymore. I couldn't keep staring at a life I was never told existed, a life I was supposed to be part of. Evelina didn't follow. And Nico, he just stood beside her, holding that red scarf like it was the only thing in the world that made sense. I walked half a block before I stopped and sat down on a bench outside an antique store. My legs were shaking. My hands felt numb. My mind was a disaster zone of unanswered questions, all burning under one headline. What else didn't she tell me? And somewhere beneath all that, a deeper, darker thought started crawling to the surface. Who was she protecting him from? Because something told me it wasn't me. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even lie down. I just sat in that dingy motel armchair, staring out the window at a flickering street lamp, trying to make sense of everything I'd seen. Nico. His face. His name. The way Evelina shielded him from me like I was a threat. Not the man who had once loved her so completely, I gave up pieces of myself I'll never get back. I must have replayed that scene outside the cafe 1,000 times in my head. Every word. Every movement. Every hesitation in her voice. None of it added up. She was scared of something. That much was obvious. But it wasn't fear of me. It was fear of what I might uncover. The next morning, I went back. Not to the cafe. Not to Evelina. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted answers. Or maybe I just wanted to see him again. I had no plan. Just impulse. I followed instinct, like some wounded animal crawling toward the scent of something familiar. Ashfield had changed. New storefronts, fewer trees, more surveillance cameras. But the park was still the same. Same rusted swing set. Same warped bench with peeling paint. Same low wooden fence that a kid could climb over in 3 seconds flat. And that's where I saw them. Across the park, by the jungle gym. Nico was climbing, barefoot, his laughter carried by the wind like a memory that wasn't mine to have. Evelina sat on a nearby bench, alone this time, watching him with eyes that looked tired even from a distance. She didn't see me. I stayed back, behind a row of shrubs, hidden like a coward. Or maybe a father. It was strange, watching my son. God, that word still felt foreign, without him knowing who I was. He moved like her. Quick, light steps. He looked around a lot. Observant. Cautious. But not scared. Not yet. Then something shifted. A man approached. Not just any man. Someone I didn't recognize. Tall. Lean. Wore a tan coat too clean for the weather. He walked with purpose, not casual like a neighbor or some friendly stranger. Evelina didn't wave. She didn't smile. In fact, she stiffened the moment she saw him. I moved closer, barely breathing, crouching low near the fence. They spoke in hushed tones. He leaned in. She leaned away. Her arms crossed, her jaw tight. Whatever they were saying, it wasn't friendly. He gestured toward Nico once. She shook her head. He said something else, louder this time. She looked around, panicked, and hissed something I couldn't hear. Her body language screamed one thing. This is not okay. I didn't realize my hands were gripping the wooden fence until a splinter jabbed under my thumbnail. I didn't care. I wanted to run over there, demand to know who he was. But I didn't. Because something told me this wasn't just some ex or coworker or nosy parent. This was something else. The man eventually walked off, fast, like he didn't want to be seen. Evelina sat down slowly, hands trembling, then called out to Nico, who was now building a tower of sticks near the sandbox. I waited until they left. Then I followed the man. I didn't plan it. I just moved. Like something inside me knew I had to. He didn't notice me. He walked quickly through the side streets, cutting corners like someone used to being watched. Eventually, he ducked into an office building on Franklin Avenue. I waited until the door closed, then walked past slowly. The sign out front read, Elmridge Family Services, Child Welfare Division. I froze. And in that moment, 1,000 possibilities hit me at once. What was he doing talking to her? Why was she so tense? Was she involved in some kind of case? Was Nico in danger? Or worse, was she being watched? And why did she never tell me anything? I walked back to the motel in silence, each step heavier than the last. I felt like I was sinking into something much bigger than heartbreak now. This wasn't just about abandonment, or betrayal, or even a secret son. This was about something Evelina had buried deep. And for the first time since I'd seen her, a thought I hadn't dared to entertain finally crawled to the surface. What if the story she told herself all these years wasn't just to protect me? What if it was to protect him? I didn't go back to the motel that night. I couldn't. Not with the weight in my chest, and the way my hands wouldn't stop trembling every time I thought about the man in the tan coat and that cold, emotionless office building. The name, Elmridge Family Services, kept echoing in my head like a warning label I didn't know how to read. I walked for hours. Past the familiar corners of Ashfield I'd once called home. Past the record store where I proposed. Past the bookstore where Evelina used to read with her knees tucked up under her chin, totally unaware that I was already in love with her. Past the ice cream shop where we used to argue about stupid things like toppings and napkins and whether dogs should wear clothes. It was all still there, but it was like walking through someone else's memories. Like the version of my life that belonged here had been erased and replaced with a quieter, sadder copy. And then, without fully knowing why, I found myself outside her building. Yes, her building. She still lived in the same place. Different unit, maybe. Different name on the buzzer. I hadn't checked. But the building itself was the same. Brick. Crooked mailbox. A busted light above the side entrance that flickered like it was trying to say something in Morse code. I stood across the street and stared at it like it might talk back. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to see her walk out. Maybe to see Nico in the window. Maybe to get struck by lightning and skip the part where I had to make a decision. But instead, I saw someone else. A man. Older. Heavy set. Tan coat. No, not tan coat. This one was navy. Thinner. He stood on the steps of Evelina's building with a clipboard in his hand and a badge clipped to his hip. He knocked. Waited. Knocked again. Then made a call and left a note on the door. I watched from behind a parked van, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. When he left, I crossed the street and casually peeled the note from the door like it belonged to me. Unannounced visit. Please contact your case manager ASAP. C. Mendez. Case manager. The words hit me like a shovel to the chest. What case? What was happening behind that door that required drop-ins from people with badges and clipboards? My mind began spiraling. Was she being investigated? Was Nico being monitored? Was this about custody? Or abuse? Or something else? I thought about calling her. I even pulled out my phone and stared at her old number, still saved, still untouched for years. But my fingers wouldn't move. Because deep down, I didn't think she'd answer. And if she did, I didn't think I could believe her. That's when I remembered something. A name. A name I hadn't spoken aloud in almost a decade. Marla. Evelina's sister. The one who blocked me the week Evelina left. The one who refused to tell me anything, even when I begged, even when I cried like a child into her voicemail. The one who, if memory served, hated me with the quiet efficiency of someone who knew far more than they ever let on. She still lived in Ashfield, too. I found her address in less than 2 minutes online. I don't know if that's sad or terrifying, how easy it is to track people now. But I didn't care. I needed answers. And she was the only one left who might give them to me without trying to protect some fragile, fake version of the past. Her house was smaller than I remembered. Tighter. Neater. It had this gray exterior like it had given up on color altogether. Wind chimes on the porch. A yellow porch chair that looked more decorative than functional. The porch light was on. I stood at the bottom step for a long time. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 20. Then I knocked. She answered the door wearing an old sweatshirt and the same expression she wore at my wedding. Half pity, half warning. She didn't say hello. She just folded her arms and said, "She told me you were back." I swallowed. "I need to know the truth, Marla. I deserve that much." She looked at me for a long time, then opened the door wider. "Then sit down," she said. "Because the version you think you lived, it was never real. And if you're not ready to hear it, you should leave now." I sat down, and what she said next would change everything I thought I knew about Evelina, about our past, about myself. Marla sat across from me like she'd been waiting for this day for years. Not angry, not smug, just tired. Like someone who's been holding their breath underwater and isn't sure if coming up for air will be better or worse than just staying down. She didn't offer coffee. She didn't make small talk. She just sat in her worn armchair and stared me down like she was trying to figure out what version of me had finally crawled back. "You still think she left you because of some affair," she said flatly. "You've been living inside that story for how long now?" 9 years, I said, quieter than I meant. She scoffed. "Then you've spent 9 years hiding from the truth." I bristled. "What truth? That she walked out without a word? That she took my kid and pretended I didn't exist?" Marla tilted her head. "You're assuming she ever had a choice." That hit me wrong. Hard. It felt like gaslighting. Like rewriting history. But before I could respond, she continued. "You were a good man, back then. Honest. Loyal. Soft, maybe too soft. You made her feel safe, and she needed that. God knows our family didn't give her much of it. You were probably the first thing in her life that didn't come with strings or a bruise. I stared at her, confused. That wasn't how Evelina ever described herself. She was headstrong, confident, sharp. She never seemed fragile, not until I saw her freeze on that sidewalk like a deer in headlights. She never told you about our father, did she? Marla asked. No, I said. She always said he left when she was young. He didn't leave, she replied. He was forced out. After what he did. The room felt smaller suddenly. Heavier. She was 10, Marla said. I was 12. And he used to come into her room at night. For a long time, I didn't understand what was happening. She told me once, begged me not to tell Mom. Said if she told anyone, he'd kill the dog. That was the threat. Not us. The dog. I felt sick. She finally cracked one day. Told Mom. There was a huge blowout. Screaming, broken glass, blood on the floor. He was gone the next day, but no police, no therapy. Just silence. Mom made her promise never to talk about it again. Said it would ruin everything. I felt myself sinking. Marla's voice didn't shake. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical, like she'd told this story before, maybe to a therapist, maybe to no one at all. She spent years pretending she was okay. Then she met you, and for a while, she believed it. Believed that love would fix it. But trauma doesn't disappear just because someone's nice to you. You can't love it out of a person. I sat back in the chair, hands clenched between my knees, trying to process everything. Why didn't she tell me? I asked, my voice cracking. Because she was ashamed, Marla said simply. And because she knew you wouldn't understand. You were always gentle, but you weren't built for the dark. You couldn't handle her mess, and she didn't want you to try. She was protecting you as much as herself. I hated that. I hated it. Because it meant the past wasn't what I thought it was. It meant she didn't betray me because she didn't love me, but because she didn't know how to be loved without fear. But Nico, I said, why didn't she tell me about him? Marla looked away for the first time. That silence was different. She was going to. She wrote the letter 100 times. She even bought a train ticket to find you when he turned 3. But then something happened. Someone showed up. Who? Marla stood and walked to a drawer. She pulled out an old envelope and handed it to me. No name. No return address. Just a faint, embossed logo in the corner. A tree. Broken down the middle. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. You are being watched. If you contact him, you will lose custody. No signature. No details. Just cold, quiet terror on thick ivory paper. She got that 5 days before she planned to tell you, Marla said. It crushed her. She burned the others. Hid this one. And after that, she stopped writing letters. Stopped hoping. I stared at the note, my heart a jackhammer in my chest. Who would send this? I whispered. I don't know, she said. But I think you just saw him 2 days ago. Tan coat. Clean shoes. Empty eyes. My mind raced back to the man at the park. You think she's under surveillance? I asked. I think someone has been pulling strings for a long time, she said. And I think whatever you stepped back into, it's deeper than you understand. I sat in silence for a long time. Then I looked at her. Do you think I should walk away again? She didn't blink. I think it's already too late. I left Marla's house with the envelope pressed against my ribs like it was a live wire. I walked 3 blocks before realizing I hadn't said goodbye. My head was spinning so violently it felt like the sidewalk was tilting beneath me. Nothing made sense anymore, except the one thing I couldn't ignore. She had been trying to protect me. All this time. And someone didn't want me near my son. Not because I was dangerous, but because they were. I got back to the motel sometime after 10. I didn't remember the walk. I didn't remember opening the door or turning off the light or sitting on the edge of the bed. I just remember staring at that envelope and the broken tree logo in the corner over and over again until the lines blurred. What did it mean? Why a tree? Why no signature? Why no trace? I searched everything. I scanned the envelope with my phone. Reverse image searched the watermark, ran the phrase, "You are being watched," through every database I could find. The man in the tan coat. The man Evelina flinched away from. I had to know who he was. I wasn't stupid. I knew I couldn't just walk in there and start throwing around accusations. But I could walk past. I could watch. I could wait. So I did. The next morning, I stood across the street with a cheap coffee in my hand and my hood pulled low. I waited for the morning rush, blending in with a cluster of smokers and commuters. I watched every person who entered and exited that glass-paneled lobby. At 8:43 a.m., he arrived. Same coat, same gait, same clipped, calculated movements. He swiped a badge, entered the building, and disappeared behind the elevator doors. I memorized his face this time. And then, I followed protocol. I waited until he was gone. Then I entered, told the receptionist I was looking for my cousin, gave a fake last name, said I thought he worked in the welfare office, but I wasn't sure. She smiled, told me I could check the staff board in the hallway. I did. There he was. Second row from the top. Carlton Mendez, Community Liaison Officer. I took a picture. Then I left. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't know where to go. I just walked, heart pounding, mind turning over every possibility. Carlton Mendez. He was the one who'd visited Evelina's apartment. The one who'd talked to her in the park. The one who sent the envelope. Maybe. Maybe not. But he was connected. And he was a start. I called Marla. She picked up on the third ring. I need a favor, I said. And I know you owe me nothing. But I have to see Evelina. In person. Somewhere private. There was a pause. Then she said, I'll text you an address. Don't be late. And don't bring your phone inside. She hung up. The address was a cabin, just outside town, near Lake Morley. I hadn't been out there in years. It used to be where Evelina would go when things got too loud. When the city felt like it was swallowing her. A place with no service, no signals, just silence and trees. I got there before she did. Waited. Watched the wind stir the surface of the lake like it was whispering secrets. Then I heard the tires on gravel. Her car pulled up slow. She stepped out alone, wearing that same burgundy scarf, and for a moment, just a moment, she looked like the girl I used to know. She walked over, arms folded tight, and stood 5 feet away. Neither of us said a word. Until she did. I told you not to come back. Her voice wasn't angry. It was hollow, like she was reciting a line she didn't believe anymore. I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it out. She stared at it. And then she broke. Not in the way I expected. Not with tears or shouting or some dramatic confession. She just collapsed. Her legs gave out, and she sat down in the dirt like a puppet with the strings cut. She covered her mouth with both hands and shook her head again and again, whispering, no, like she was trying to convince herself of something that wouldn't hold. I'm sorry, she whispered finally. I didn't want you to see any of this. I crouched in front of her. Who is he? I asked. Mendez. Why is he following you? She looked up, and I swear, I will never forget the expression on her face. He's not following me, she said. He's monitoring me. I'm part of a program, and if I break the terms, I lose everything. Nico, my job, my name, everything. What program? I demanded. She looked around, like the trees might be listening. It's called Arbor, she said quietly. It's supposed to help people with difficult pasts. But it's not what they say. Once you're in, you can't leave. They rewrite your life. They make you sign things you don't understand. They know things they shouldn't. I only joined to protect Nico. But they don't want you near him. They think you're a variable. A threat. To who? I asked. Her voice cracked. To them. I stared at her, heart pounding. And for the first time in this entire nightmare, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. This wasn't about a breakup. This wasn't about a secret child. This wasn't even about betrayal. This was about control. And someone, somewhere, had decided that the person I used to be was too dangerous to be allowed back into my own life. The sun was starting to dip behind the trees by the time either of us moved again. Evelina sat in the dirt, eyes hollow but dry now, like she'd run out of tears years ago. I stayed crouched beside her, hands shaking, trying to hold in everything I wanted to scream. I thought I was the one who got left, I said finally. But I see now, you were the one trapped. She didn't look at me when she said, you would have tried to fix it, and they would have used that to ruin you. You should have told me. I wanted to, she said. God, I wrote you so many letters. I even drove halfway to your place once. Nico was asleep in the back seat. But then I got a call. They knew. They always knew. I sat beside her, knees in the dirt. You were never the problem, she said softly. You were the last safe thing I ever had. And I knew if I let you near me again, you'd light a match to the whole system. And they'd make sure you never saw your son again. So what now? I asked. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I think, now that you've seen it, they'll come for you too. But not in the way you think. No guns. No threats. Just silence. You'll get a warning, a reminder to leave. And if you don't, they'll start taking things. Slowly, quietly. A job here, a friend there, until you disappear like I did. But I don't care, I said. They can try, but I'm not going anywhere. Evelina turned her head toward me, and for the first time in 9 years, she really looked at me. Not the version of me in her memories. Not the man she once loved. Just me. Worn out. Weathered. A little older. But still here. You've changed, she said. I laughed. Yeah, I'm a mess. But I'm your mess. And then, like the strangest miracle, she smiled. It wasn't the full, confident grin I remembered. It was smaller, sadder, but real. A flicker of something unburied. We sat there for a while, not saying anything, just listening to the wind ripple across the lake. Eventually, she stood, brushed off her jeans, pulled her scarf tighter. I want you to meet him, she said. Nico. Properly. Not by accident. Not in secret. I want him to know who his father is. Not because the system allows it. Because I do. My chest tightened. I'd like that, I said. I'd like that more than anything. She nodded. We'll take it slow. Carefully. Quietly. But this time, no more lies. And then she stepped forward, carefully, nervously, and hugged me. It wasn't long. It wasn't perfect. But it was the first real thing we'd shared in 9 years. And it told me everything I needed to know. We weren't going back to what we were. That chapter was over. But maybe, just maybe, we were going to write something new. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks. And in the morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Mr. Kessler, we're aware of your involvement. For your safety and the safety of others, we urge you to refrain from further contact. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. They could watch me, track me, whisper threats in the shadows. But I had something they didn't. A name, a face, a son. And for the first time in 9 years, I had a reason to stay.